Alright, class. Today we're going to do inequalities with absolute value, 2.6.
Thank you, buddy. Alright, so notes are coming around right now. We just talked about in warm-ups, right? Absolute value and how we, again, that's the skill in terms of being able to break it up, keeping one exactly the same, alright? Changing the sign of the other one. We're still going to need to know that today. But we're going to have to know, because we did inequalities yesterday, we did compound, right? And or ors. We're still going to need that again today. So guys, there should be no reason right now why we need Chromebooks on our desk. There should be absolutely no reason. We'll give you time at the end of class, I promise, to make sure to print off your reference sheets. I want to make sure you get this. We don't have a lot of examples today. I think we only have 4. Then we're going to give you guys time to do some review at the end. We're going to give you guys some time during the lesson to actually practice and do some stuff. All right, so we're looking at no. So we're looking at 2.6 today. So first thing we want to look at is a situation where we could use absolute value, use an absolute value inequality. All right, how we would do it. All right. So you guys don't have to write this down. It's not in your notes. Don't worry about it.
20. So you look at that. If it said to you, I'll just do this part. Okay. If it said to you, last night the temperature was always within 5 degrees of 0. What does that mean? The warmest it could have been last night was up to 5 degrees. But if it's within 5 degrees of 0, what could have the coldest it have been?
0.
No.
Negative.
Negative what? Within 5 degrees of 0.
Within 5 degrees of 0.
Negative.
Negative 5.
Exactly.
So when we did that yesterday, right? Here's your number line. Here's 5. Here's negative 5. Where would the temperatures be? Like you guys told me the warmest was 5. The coldest was negative 5. Where are all the other temperatures? Relative to those 2 dots? In between. What did we do yesterday where we shaded in between? What word is usually associated with that? And. Right? So I want you guys to notice, what kind of symbol is that? No, that symbol? That's a less than. Right? Less than. We shaded between. All right, so we're going to see more of that today. The idea that if you're within a certain value, okay, like we just did, within 5 degrees of the temperature of 0, that's an inequality. Okay.
And we're gonna. But before, guys, we've looked at that sign to tell us how we were going to make our dots open or closed. All right, or our circles on our graph. These are going to come in. Looking at the sign is going to be important again today for the next step that we add to this. All right? So that's just a little something to get you guys thinking about how this is going to work. There's nothing else. And there's a number line. Mr. Hager already put that down. You already saw that. Wrong way, Mr. Roy. All right. So here are the steps. All right. I think on your notes, you have some blanks. All right? So instead of getting absolute value bars by itself on one side of the equal sign, what we want to do is we want to get absolute value bars by itself on one side of the inequality sign. All right? So just like we did before, if we have stuff on the outside of the absolute value bars on the left-hand side of the equal sign, we got to move that first before we can split it. All right? So you're going to write, instead of that, you're going to write get absolute value bars by itself on one side of then you're going to write down all the inequality signs. And use the opposite operation to move stuff. All right? It'd be like if we had something like this. If we had like, you guys can keep copying this down. You don't have to write this either. If we had something like that, the absolute value bar on the left-hand side of the inequality sign, the absolute value bar is not by itself, so I can't split it yet. Right? I don't think we'll get into anything this complex with this, guys. All right? I don't think we'll do an awful lot with anything. I don't think we'll do anything with anything on the outside of the absolute value bars. You gotta move it. Everything we do today, everything on the test tomorrow and Friday is gonna have the absolute value bars by itself. But it's still good to know these steps. So the only thing that's different with this is, guys, is the sign. Right? And we're gonna add, not even really add a step to do this, we're just gonna have to look at the sign to help us figure out something else when we do these kind of problems. Right, so that was number one, the first step. Alright, is there a space for that on there?
Yep.
Alright, so first, do addition or subtraction if necessary. Alright, if it was like x plus 4, absolute value minus 3, 7. Something like that. Alright, we'd have to add the 3 first to get the absolute value bars by itself. Alright, you have to do that first before we can split. Then, after that, we could multiply or divide on either side. Alright, like I said, it's still good to know these steps. It's kind of a review of what we did. This is even before we're splitting it, even before doing anything with changing signs, doing any of that type of stuff. Alright? But like I said, we're not really going to give you anything that's that complex when we do these. We're going to give you the absolute value bars by itself, we'll give you an inequality sign, and we'll give you a number after the inequality sign. You just have to figure out how you want to split it up. So nothing super crazy like that. You have to do any work before you split it up. All right. Number 2. Just like we did in the warm up, we're gonna split. We'll split the inequalities like we did before, and then this new part is when we split it. All right. When we do the second inequality, we have to flip the sign. All right. So before, same exact thing before. We're gonna write the first one with no absolute value bars, sign exactly the same, number exactly the same. So the same exact problem is there as what's there in the original, just without the absolute value bars. All right. For the second one, so like we said, when we split it, here's your original right here. Here's the bars for your original. When we go this way, it's going to be the original inequality. When we flip it the other way, we have to flip the sign. So whatever way the arrow is pointing, when you do your second inequality, have it point in the opposite direction. All right, and then make sure, like we did before, we did absolute value equations just with the equal sign. We got to make the sign after it opposite. If it was negative, make it positive. If it's positive, make it negative. So say if you guys want to, say if we had like x plus 3, let's just circle and say it was less than or equal to 6. All right. What would my original? Now I want to split it, right? So I split it and write my first inequality. Someone raise their hand and tell me what it would be. Joe?
Well, if you split it, wouldn't it be x plus 3 is less than or equal to 6?
Yeah, there it is. Exactly the same, just without the bars. And for both of them that we split, we make sure that there's no bars. We never write it with any absolute value bars once we split it. All right. Now for this one, it's a little more difficult. You got to do a little more. You got to make sure you write it with no bars. You got to make sure you flip the sign and have it point in the other direction, and you got to make sure you make the number at the end the opposite. Anybody think they want to try it?
Wait, what do you mean by try it?
Let's see if someone raise their hand so they can do it. Sophia?
X plus 3 is greater than or equal to -6.
Yep, there it is, right? Number 1, it's written without the bars. Number 2, I flip the sign, right? For this one, it was pointed to the left. This one, I want to point it to the right. Or this one, it was less than. This one's greater than. and then I wrote it without, I made the number at the end opposite. It was positive in the original, I made it negative when I did my second inequality. So that's one part, that's one, again, so the only new thing for these is flip the sign. We've done absolute value, we've split it up before, we've made the number at the end the opposite, we've done that. The only thing new so far is flipping the sign. That's the only thing that's new. Everything else we've done before. Step 3. We gotta graph it. But how? How am I gonna graph it? This is when paying attention to that original sign, the original inequality sign, the original problem is important. Alright? Like we put, what kind of a problem is it? That's written on your thing, right? Here we go. If the original sign is, Mallory, what are these two signs?
Less than or less than.
Yeah, less than or less than equal to. It's going to become an and problem. It should be separated by the word and. You don't have to write it, you just write the word and in between. You don't have to worry about writing it the other way with the X in the middle. Do it this way. It's going to be easier. And the hint we tell you guys is think less than. If it's a less than or less than equal to, it's a less than. That's one way to think of it. All right, Joe?
So pretty much wouldn't it just be like what we did before with, like, I'm trying to think, how like it just be the X in the middle or whatever?
Yeah.
Or not really the X, but like the symbol, you would just have it show what it is. So it'd be like X3 is less than or equal to.
Yeah, so we're gonna look at, if I was doing this one, right? So let's get through this and then we'll talk about that in a second, okay? So if it's less than or less than or equal to, it becomes an and. Like we said, think less than. I know it's less than, but add the D on the end to remember. If the original sign is, no, what are these signs?
Greater than and greater than equal to.
Yeah, greater than or greater than or equal to, alright? It becomes an or problem. You gotta separate the two inequalities with the word or. So, it's great or. Great or less than. It's one of these signs, it's an and. It's one of those signs, it's an or. So if we go back up to the example that we wrote, right? So we're gonna make sure we have to look at the original sign in the original inequality, the one that we looked at to split. So if we go back up to the original, here's our original right here. And I just circled the sign I wanted to use. Connor, what sign is that? That's greater than or equal to. Less than or equal to. So based on the notes we just took, right? I'm going to put a little blank here, Connor. What word should be separating the two inequalities? And, right? It's a less than. So I would put and there. It's an and problem. When we do an and problem, someone tell me by raising their hand. Someone besides Joe, but thank you, Joe. How about Xander with a Z? What would my graph look like when I graph it? If it's an and. Connect the dots. Alright? I think you guys have this written on your thing. Remember the rules for graphing and and ors that we just talked about? Ands go in towards each other, ors go opposite. And remember, if for some reason you're multiplying or dividing by a negative, you've got to make sure you flip the sign. Alright? So say if I go back up here, and say if this was like, whatever, like negative x plus 3. At the end, that would cause me to, even though I flipped it here, because that's what we have to do, that's part of the process, I would have to flip it again because I'm multiplying by a negative. Alright? And we'll run into that situation today. Alright? So so like I said, the only two things that are new with these. Two things that are new today. Number one, making sure that you flip the sign when you write your second inequality, when it's absolute value. Second thing, based on what the original sign is, knowing what word is going to separate the two. Everything else, you've done. Everything else you've done. You've done all this stuff. Graphing ands and ors, we did that yesterday. Absolute value, we did a couple weeks ago. You've done all this stuff. Will, you all set?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. So let's look at example. So what we'll do, guys, is 1A and 1B, all right? We'll do those together. And then 2A, 2B, you guys will do them on your own. Then we'll come back together and we'll go over them. All right? So we got x minus 5, absolute value x minus 5, greater than 7. Savannah, what's the first thing I have to ask myself before I split it? Can I split that? Am I good to split it like right now? Can I make it into two inequalities right now? Okay. Gemini, what do you think?
You have to ask yourself if it's an and or an or.
You could do that. Madison?
You have to see if there's any numbers on the left or the right of the
Yeah, anything on to the left of it or anything before the sign on the right. Do I have that here? Is there anything outside the absolute value on the left or the right before the sign? Is there anything there? There's nothing there. So what does that mean I can do? What can I do now? I can split it, right? I can split it up into two inequalities. Mackenzie, what's my first inequality going to be? Not sure. All right. X.
X minus 5 is greater than 7.
X minus 5 greater than 7. X. Do I need absolute value bars? No, I don't need that, so I'm good to split it. Now here comes the one that's a little bit trickier. All right. Paige, do you think you know what the second inequality is going to be that I split?
Yeah.
Okay.
X minus 5 is less than negative 7.
I think, see what, X, what happened, I think you might have set it the wrong way, that's all. It should have been a greater, you might have said less than, I didn't catch it. This is a greater than, because it's the original, okay. I thought you said, I just said that, I'm sorry. Alright, perfect, right? Flip the sign, make the number at the end negative. Will, you getting this down?
Yes.
Okay, buddy, let's check.
Huh? My graphite fell out.
Okay. So, perfect, now, I'm going to come back to Gemini. She said she wanted to do this in the first part, which you could have. You're not wrong. You could have done it right from the beginning. But sometimes we save it to the end. If you do it right at the beginning, if that works for you, that's fine. You said figure out if it's an and or an or. What's it going to be? What are you looking at? Are you looking up here? Huh?
So it's an or.
It's an or, right? Because it's a great. The original sign is greater than. Remember, great or. It's going to be an or. It's going to be an or problem. All right? We have to go back and look at the original sign to tell us what type of problem it's going to be. All right? So, this one on the left. Sydney, the one on the left, right? What's my first step? Actually, it's only going to be one step. What do I have to do?
To add 5.
I'm going to add 5. Sorry, mistaken.
No, you're good.
I'll plus 5. Stuff I don't use, what do?
Bring it down.
Let's bring it down. Everything else comes down. Sydney, 7 plus 5?
Is 12.
12.
Wait, it's a negative 7.
Not over here it is.
Oh, I see that.
Oops. Whoa. Alright, my or, I'm just going to bring it down so I know what's in between. Alright, the cool thing about these is, whatever your first step is on the equation on the left, it's going to be your first step on the equation on the right. So Connor, look what we did on the left, we're going to do the exact same thing on the right. So what should I do? Look what I did on the left. What did I do on the left? I added what?
5.
5. So I'm gonna add 5 here. And Connor, what else am I gonna add 5? To what number?
7.
Stuff I don't use, like Noah always tells me, make sure I bring it down. I got a -7 and a +5. The bigger number is negative, right? So I gotta make sure that my answer is negative. It'll be negative, what number? 2. Now, it's an OR, right? So Nathan, when I graph an OR, what's it gonna look like?
The arrows are going to be facing away from each other.
Opposite, or opposite, all right? This one, how do I graph it?
You put an open circle on 12.
Open at 12. I think Mr. Hager's gonna do it. Open at 12, and then arrow's gonna point to the
Right.
right. Good. That's look where the arrow is pointing here. It goes exactly the same way, right? We've done that before too. All right. Now, how about Noah, to graph this? What do I do?
That would be an open circle.
Where?
On the -2.
-2. Good. Arrow.
Right. I mean, go that left.
Left. One go opposite, right?
Yep.
So again, that you've done before. The only thing that's new is making sure you know, flip the sign here, look at the original sign to see what type of problem it's gonna be, an and or an or. Everything else, you've done before. Everything else you've done before. So that's it.
Let's
Yeah.
do 2A, so then they see one or and one and, instead of 2 ors.
Sure, that's fine. Guys, so I know on your thing, it says 2A is gonna be like a try it now, or do, I think it says do now or something like that. We'll do, you guys will do 1B on your own, and then you do 2B on your own, okay?
6 or 5.
So this is x minus, absolute value, x minus 6, less than 5. All right, x minus 6, all right, then we have the absolute value, then we get 5, all right?
Mr. Roy.
Yo. Oh no, I'm gonna give you my original, that's wrong. Sorry.
Anybody else have that?
No, funny, that's why I do this way, I usually print it like single side, then I double side when I flip the printer. You can just, yeah, we'll get you one, you can just staple it too. Alright, so Mackenzie, I asked you for the last one we did to figure out the first inequality. You had a hard time with that, and that's okay. Do you think you feel better about being able to do it now? You wanna tell me? Minus what number? Yeah. Is the arrowhead pointing left or right? Towards me, right? Cool. And then what? X minus 6, you get anything, what number is going to be here? 5, right? Nothing changes except the bars. Alright, there's no bars. Everything else is the same. Everything else stays exactly the same. Alright? Well, how about my second inequality? Here's my first, original, no bars, everything else the same. The second one's a little more tricky. You think you know how to do it?
Looks like to flip it.
Okay, I gotta flip it, so tell me what I'm gonna write.
You're gonna write x minus 6 the other way.
Alright, so you're gonna be eating this way or that way?
You're gonna eat that way.
Eating the x minus 6, right? You know what that sign means? What does that mean?
Means greater.
Greater, right? So x minus 6 greater than,
Greater than
don't forget the other thing you have to do.
5.
X, what are you gonna do?
You gotta get it to a negative.
Make sure, flip it, alright, change this, make sure you change the sign too, right? You gotta make sure you change this, the sign of the number and the direction of the arrow. Both of those things need to happen.
Can you get it to graph?
Sophia?
And
And how do you know?
because it's a less than sign.
Remember, you're looking here. That's where you look to see what's it gonna be, an and or an or. It's a less than is the hint. It's an and. Alright? Ginny, in this one right here on the left, what do you want to get by itself?
X.
X, right? So here's this getting stuff set up. I want to get X by itself, right? What do I do?
Add 6.
Add 6 to both sides. Plus 6, plus 6. What do I get when I do that?
X is less than 1.
5, positive 5 and positive 6. It's okay.
12.
Close.
13.
11. 11, okay? That's okay, but you know what? I like the fact that you knew what you had to add, and that went down perfect. Alright? On the other side, like I told you before, the cool thing about this is the steps you do here are exactly the same here. Alright? So all I'm gonna do is, I think you guys can hopefully figure this out by now. I'm gonna plus 6, I'm gonna plus 6. Alright? X greater than? No. 1. 6 is bigger than 5. 6 has the positive sign. The sign of my answer has to be positive. It's 6 minus 5, which is 1. Now, what kind of a problem is it? It's an and, right? Someone tell me about raising their hand. Actually, you know the question I'm going to ask, and he's ready. What's the graph going to look like?
We're both going to go opposite directions.
That's for an or. And in towards each other, right? All right, cool. So I got my graph set up. All right. Decide how am I going to graph this?
There's no 11 on.
I know. Okay. What would you put? We can put between 10 and 12, right?
Yeah.
Open or closed? Open or closed?
Open.
How do you know?
Because there's no
Yeah, nothing underneath, right? Open there. Good. And what direction will my line go?
This way.
To the left or to the right?
To the right.
Your arrow's pointing left, right? So you want your line to go to the left.
This way.
This way, okay. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. Alright, and then, so we've got to go in that way. Madison, what about this?
You're gonna put an open circle on 1,
Yeah,
and then it's going to point to the right.
to the right, good. And again, that's what we want, right? It's just to connect the dots. Alright? So I'm saying it's just going to connect these dots if you wanted to. And again, you guys know, if you don't want to like put an arrow above it, pointing in towards each other, if you know, we've talked about it so much, that when it's an and, they point towards each other and you connect the dots, that's perfect. You don't have to do all that other work. All right? Let's go back to 1B. Now, sorry, I'm mistaken. My bad. So 1B. Now, all I want you to do right now is take it and set it up. What I want to see on there is your first equation, your second equation, and the word that separates it. That's what I want to see right now. First equation, second equation, and a word separate. If you feel confident enough to go ahead and solve it, go for it. Alright, so guys, for this one, listen up. For this one, here's your work, right? When I walked around, mostly everybody had this fine and did a good job of splitting it and knowing how to split it. Alright? People seem to do a pretty good job in terms of knowing what to subtract or add to get the variable by itself. Here's where the trick came in. For this one, when I do it, I have a negative x. Alright? So that means I have to divide by a -1 to be able to do it. Alright? So I made a little note here. I had to flip because I divided by a negative. So here, alright, it was greater than, I had to flip it to less than. And I had a negative divided by a negative. That's why I got a positive result. The same thing happens over here. First step is exactly the same. Bring down the negative x. -4, -2, and -4 is -6. I'm not multiplying, I'm subtracting. When the signs are the same, I keep the sign and add the numbers together. There's that -x again. I gotta make sure I divide by -1 because x isn't by itself yet. So what happens is the sign gets flipped. Now, Mr. Hager put a little line in here. What word, sometimes by raising your hand, what word is gonna separate it? X? Or, right? Don't worry about when you flipped or anything. Go back to the original. You have to go back to the original to figure it out. It's gonna be in or. How do ors work?
They go in.
Opposite. Ors, opposite, and go in. We got it right? I'm gonna go close circle.
That's not right, that's not fair.
Close circle at 2. I'm gonna go left because my arrow is pointing left. I'm gonna go this way because my arrow is pointing that way. I'm gonna do close circle at 6. And my line's gonna go to the right. Alright? Guys, 2b is pretty much exactly like 1b. We have to divide by a negative and all that stuff. So I'm not gonna have you guys do that. Alright? If people need more time to copy this down, are they okay? Everyone's good?
Yeah.
Alright. So like I said, I'm gonna skip 2b. Homework. Alright? Reference sheet. Alright? You can use it on the test tomorrow. So tomorrow, the first half of class, we'll do some more review problems. Nothing new. Nothing new tomorrow. We'll do some review for the first half. Around when the bell rings to start period 8. Alright? That's when we'll start the test. Alright, so we'll start the test tomorrow. If you finish tomorrow in 39 minutes of class, great. You have nothing to worry about on Friday. But some people may not finish. You can be quiet to them on Friday.
Mr. Boy.
Friday, hold on, Joe. Friday, we'll finish the test. If you didn't finish the test, so don't finish the test tomorrow. We're gonna get dismissed. They'll start making announcements at about 1:20 on Friday, right at the start of period 8, to start dismissing us to the football field for the rally. All right. At that time, if you haven't finished the test, you're gonna make arrangements with Mr. Hager to make sure you can finish over shop week. Another very important thing. This is the last academic week of the quarter. Friday is your last academic day. So the homeworks and stuff we do this week will be the last ones in the book for the quarter. Same thing with the test on Friday. If your average isn't that good, you want to make sure you fill out the reference sheet and have it all ready for the test.